ahead to this weekend. Granted, players only just coming back from international duty. Do you have a relatively clean bill of health? How are you shaping it for this weekend?
If the players are fit, that's I think they are. We trained today for the first time with them. With most of them, the non-internationals did train with the under-21s this week already. Curtis Jones, of course, I don't know if you knew, but he got injured in the last game, so he will not be available for the game against Burnley. But I think the rest of them all came back without a problem, and that is almost that's not always the situation, especially not in the beginning of the season where everybody comes from a different background, going to the national team where they then all of a sudden have to play 2 games in 4 or 5 days, which is always the biggest risk in November and October, and in March they are much more used to that program. So we're happy that they are fit, and again, a compliment not only for the Swedish manager but also for the others, because a few others like Ryan Gravenberg didn't only started 1 game and not both of them.
And in terms of Burnley, obviously they got promoted last season. Scott Parker's developed a team with a reputation for being defensively solid. What do you expect for this weekend? How will you need to approach it?
Defensively solid, but I don't give them enough credits if I only talk about that, because first goal they scored against Sunderland was a great team goal. Good team, but like all the others, we know. My experience from last season is when the teams that were relegated now, so I replaced them for the ones that promoted. We had problems at Ipswich, we had problems at Leicester, and we had problems at Southampton, and problems with we only won it in the end phase of the game, there's we know that every game is difficult, and I only have to look back at last season to understand that. Thank you.
Arne, we're obviously very familiar with what Alexander Isak can do on the pitch, but from your interactions with him, what do you make of his characteristics as a person? At Newcastle, he seemed very all business and able to kind of separate the emotion in a really kind of focused way. Do you think that's maybe even helped him across the summer? And is that anything that you see?
Yeah, maybe people don't believe me if I give you this answer, but I haven't spoken to him that much. So I spoke to him after he signed by phone because he had to go to the national team. And the way I 99 out of 100 times treat my players during international breaks is I leave them for the manager that they are working with over there. So I text him maybe now once or twice because he's new to us, wanted to know how he did. But I do have to get to know him as a person much better in the upcoming days and weeks. But although we find it very important how someone is to because we have such a great culture here at this club, we mainly sign a player also for his qualities, and therefore I don't need to call him. We faced him a few times. I faced him a few times, and I know what a quality player he is.
And with how the deals worked out, getting done for Isak on deadline day, but not for Gahey, do you see any changes in modern football now where for players to truly get what they want, they might have to take things upon themselves, or do you think they were just individual circumstances?
The last one, I think. I don't think you can compare any situation with another. A different ownership, different situation. I think you cannot compare these. I'm really happy that Alex signed for us, because I did feel all the way that we needed an attacking player extra, and so happy that we could bring in the one we wanted from the start.
Your first defeat last season came straight after the first international break against Nottingham Forest. I just wonder if there was anything from the circumstances last season that have helped you prepare for the first game after the international break this time round.
Now, if there's anything I've learned from that, then we implemented that already last season, and I think it was the only time that we lost a game after the international break. But it's always difficult. You never know what is exactly the reason. At that moment of time, I was maybe a bit focused on us, the first one after the international break. But looking at the season Forest had after that, I think it has much more to do with their quality than it had to do with the first game after the international break.
And I just wondered how Chiesa has reacted to not being selected in the Champions League squad?
Of course, that is one of the most difficult things you have to do as a manager. For a player not to play is not always easy to tell him, but not to be in the squad is always more difficult. And I just explained to him why we made this choice, and of course he wasn't happy with that, but I think he understood my arguments. That's not to say that he agreed with them, but he didn't tell me, by the way, that he didn't agree with them. But he gave the answer you want to hear from a player, that he will be there to help the team in all in the cups and in the league, and that's one thing to say. But I think he also showed this because he wasn't selected, but he worked really hard in these days to be ready for the upcoming games, and that is even more important than what a player tells you.
Well, last question, please.
Hi, Arne. You scored more goals than any other team in the league this season without creating a massive amount of high-value chances. If you look at the expected goals average, I think it's just over 1 a game. Against a team like Burnley, who appear to be really happy to concede possession, how do you make sure that your time on the ball is as efficient as it can be?
Yeah. To implement as best as possible the way we want to play, but in the end, the final third is mainly for we do certain patterns, that's also clear, but it's also a form of the day of our wingers mainly, because you end up, because of their playing style, mostly on the side. So the better they are, the bigger threat they are, the more chances we will generate, and then it's 9 out of 10 times also about the score. Because if you can score an early goal, that normally helps you in a game like that. And if you don't, or even worse, you concede a goal in the beginning, that gives even more energy to the other team. So there are so many factors going into a game like that. But as always, we're hoping that our attackers can make the difference. And that's what they have to do every single game, attackingly, but not only attackingly, because if we lose the ball and we're really good in our counter-pressing, that can generate chances as well. So yeah, that is for me the biggest lesson of our game against Arsenal there, where in the first half we weren't front-footed enough in terms of our pressing. And in the second half we were. I think Arsenal were front-footed in the first half in terms of their pressing. We were at the second half, and as a result of that, I think we deserved to score the goal in the second half, because we already scored one, which was fractionally offside, and we were getting closer and closer. And in the end, I think we even deserved to score that goal based on the second half, not based on the first half.